Hello guys, welcome back to Tabletop Republic's YouTube channel. My name is Seb K and welcome back to part 2 of my breakdown of Infinity's newest faction, Svalarheima Winter Force for Panoceania. And what we're going to do today is go through sort of pros and cons of the faction and then do some list building where I go through what I think you could do with these. Obviously there's not a lot of testing that's gone into this. I have played 3 or 4 games with them. But there's not a huge amount in this faction that's super new. They just do things a little bit differently to other factions in the game and other Panoceanian sectorials and vanilla, of course, as well. So it's not super complicated. And unlike the last video I did with White Banner, we won't need to go to a table on this one. I'm not going to do a custom setup for these kind of units because it's all quite straightforward in the way that they will act on the battlefield and how they're going to set up just based on the profiles. And of course, you know, there's only so much you can do with a custom table. I will be using that again in the future, but more so to do with in-depth tactics and so on and so forth. So this is the faction, and they're beautiful. New models are absolutely brilliant. Love the coats and all that stuff, and lots of sweeping white cloaks and things, and the Knight of Justice, of course, is absolutely amazing model. I can't wait to get one of those. It should be turning up this week, according to Corvus Belli, so that'd be nice. So what we're going to do is have a look at my little list of pros and cons. I'm not going to pop it up on screen, but I am going to go through it and just talk about each unit before we go into some of the lists that I've built. So the first thing we're going to look at are the pros, of course. We're going to look at pros. What I think is good about this faction. So obviously the most obvious one is that they shoot really well. I mean, of course they shoot really well. Units like Orcs, Linked Orcs, Knight of Justice, Missile Launcher, things like that, Spitfire, Kalu, Double Fire Pack, which is an amazing unit. Obviously they shoot well because they're a panosectorial and they have above average ballistic skill, and you are going to be relying on that quite a lot, but that's quite an obvious pro, obviously, for this faction. Variable fire teams. Like White Banner and a few of the newer sectorials, they have a lot of wildcard options, and they have a lot of counts as, can join, things like that. That can also be a con, which I mentioned later on, because it's quite confusing to build lists around when there's so many rules to follow. But in the case of these guys, it's annoying, but it can also benefit. The fact that they can build around Fusiliers is brilliant, because you can make things a little bit cheaper, and you could always drag one of these up. Now, the thing about Pano is that they already shoot really well, and despite what people will tell you on the Panoceanian forums, ballistic skill 14 is enough to get most jobs done. You can bump it up to 17 with the 5-man links, but I honestly think that you want to use that high ballistic skill when you're defending for AROs, and doing that is quite easy here, where you can put a Knight of Justice in with some Fusiliers and get a nice ballistic skill 17 burst 2 missile launcher, which is very, very, very good. Obviously, you can also get NINX NIST teams, but there are problems with the NINX NIST teams because they're very expensive and they tend to force you to spend a lot of points as well. There's not a lot you can plug into them that actually reduces their cost. The funny thing about this faction is that they have a lot of wild cards that are very expensive, and often you want wild cards to be able to slot in and actually make a couple of links cheaper. But they've only really got one option for that, and he's not particularly cheap, which is Quinn. So there you go. But they do shoot really well, and they have good variable fire teams. Another pro, rather, lots of negative mods. There is a ton of negative mods in this faction. In fact, they're just everywhere. Units like the Kalu, the Nis, the Nokken, the Locust, obviously, Bulletiers. There's tons, and you can actually build a list that's entirely based around negative mods, which I've done, which you guys might see. It might be a little gimmicky, but it's fun. But obviously that's brilliant. The already high ballistic skill puts a lot of dice rolls in their favour, and then combined with the negative mods means that you can shoot fairly reliably against some things. But there is also a problem with that, which I will talk about later. They have exceptional toolbox units, and by toolbox units I mean units that just have so many good things on their profile, whether they be specialist abilities or other abilities or cheap weapons and so on. The highlights for that would be the Varg, as I've got here. Things like the K1, the Sensor, Forward Observer. Specialist options there are brilliant, and they're all reasonably priced. I think they're okay. For this armor 3, yes, it's 1 wound, but Albedo is brilliant against other armies. You're looking at an army that has a lot of negative mods, and the only thing that can mitigate that is enemy visors. And what does Albedo do? It mitigates enemy visors. So, yeah, Varg's very, very good, obviously. And then if you look through the Kalu unit, wherever the Kalu's gone, yeah, Nokken we'll go to here. Obviously, you've got all these different hacking devices and Forward Observer and mine layers and so on and so forth. Again, with the Kalu, you've got the Paramedic and Engineer option, which is actually quite good, especially with their Fireteam duo, because you can actually get some stuff done. You can use one of the units and then the wildcard units, and then drag one of these with you using the Fireteam duo skill, meaning they can use their Paramedic Engineer as a specialist and so on. Also, the basic profiles, Marat's amazing, Blitzen's amazing, combined with Mimetism and multi-terrain and Climbing Plus, and it's so many good things packed into one profile, and that happens a lot in this faction. Obviously, Locusts as well, that have been around for a while, but they do the same thing. Lots of different options there for completing different tasks, although Locusts are a little bit expensive, but still, ODD and things like that, really good. So lots of really good toolbox units. They have very good cheap backup guns I've put here as a pro. So a lot of people don't like the Boig, but it is possible to slot this Mark 12 in there and already have 2 HMGs and a NIST sniper. And this Mark 12 is basically a Spitfire that's slightly stronger. So what you've done is get a Spitfire for 0 SWC. There are loads of problems with this unit. I mean, it's kind of overpriced. It's not got the staying power of units in a similar price range. Like looking at the Gamma unit from 012, for example, which has NWI on top of, its existing weapons. Also, its main weapon is cheaper in SWC. So yes, if you compare this to other profiles, it's not as good. But if you're using it as a backup gun, it's a pretty good one. Burst 4, range of a Spitfire, basically. Damage 15, that sort of thing. Very, very good. If you want, and you run out of SWC and you just want another big gun, you can slot this guy in. Also, Richard Quinn as well. Again, putting Richard Quinn in the link is basically getting a Spitfire for free. Where's he gone? There he is. You're basically getting a Spitfire free because it's got a shot marksman rifle, which is a similar range band to a Spitfire. Has the shock on it as well, and he's got a visor. And he's a specialist, so he's a good option as well. So nice cheap backup guns there. Also, there's tons of multi-rifles everywhere. There's on the Kalu and the Orcs and just everywhere. So again, good backup guns, and they can still shoot very well even if their main guns have been taken out, or at least the ones that cost you SWC. They have extremely good coordinated shoot potential. I like to talk about this to a lot of newer players as ways of getting around. When they talk about how strong linked Kamau snipers and Nisses and plasma sniper rifles and things like that are in linked teams. Well, this is your way of dealing with that. You can throw a bunch of relatively cheap, maybe you wouldn't mind losing them kind of troops at them in a coordinated shoot. Like throw a couple of Nokken Panzerfaust in there, maybe a flash pulse bot to make sure that it maybe takes a hit from that and goes down and becomes useless anyway. Or you throw a NIST sniper in there, or a Kalu, double flyback. Into your coordinated shoot, point all of those guns at that NIST sniper as long as you position yourself properly, and they're going to only be able to react to one of them, which means that you're going to hit them with a Panzerfaust and a Flash Pulse and a Feuerback, and basically that unit should die. I think you'd have to roll pretty badly in that situation to not have a unit like that go, and then you've gotten rid of one of their big guns. It might have cost you one of your units, but considering that these units have got things like ODD and stuff anyway, they're very good for just erasing fairly safely an enemy ARO unit. So that's really, really powerful. And a lot of people talk about how good some of these ARO options are getting. That is because coordinated shoot exists. It's just not used very much, so people don't see it as a balancing factor. But I really do think it is. I think you can do it with almost every faction. I just think this faction does it particularly well. They have tons of multi-terrain options. as another pro. Why is this important? Well, not so much that you play on tables that have things like forests and things that you've got to get around and you've got to pick your specialization there. Really, it's to deal with dazers. And this faction could really suffer from being hit by dazers if it wasn't for the fact that if you go to skills and equipment and you go to multi-terrain, let's have a look. You go to multi-terrain, look at all those options you've got for multi-terrain. Most importantly, though, out of all of them, well, two I'd say really is the knock-in and the locust, because it means that you've got a specialist that just doesn't care about the dazer. And you've got Vargas, which can make up your main link team if you want to build around them, which I do in one of my lists, which allows them to move up the field, not worrying about things like dazers. And dazers are getting more and more prevalent, and they can be really nasty in missions like acquisition and things like that, where you're trying to get into the middle of the table. You have to get into the middle, and they put these dazers down, and they're stopping you from getting to those consoles and doing damage. So this faction actually doesn't worry about it too much, which is definitely a plus. It's definitely cool. Okay, so what else have I got here? I've got more linked doctors and paramedics than normal. So they haven't got the best doctors. Of course, it's a Pano sectorial. And obviously Pano have less than average whip, and they have less than decent doctors. But having said that, though, you've got a ton of paramedics and doctors that are both linkable, and are still better than the average stuff you get. Obviously, the infirmary here at whip 13 is also linkable in Knight of Justice, but also linkable in a Fusilier team. So you can have a Knight of Justice, a Fusilier, or a bunch of Fusiliers, and an infirmary in there to pick up the Knight of Justice. Maybe you've got an Orc Foy back in there, that's legal as well. Or an Orc HMG that needs to be kept alive, and having the infirmary there is good. It is quite expensive though, and the other option you've got is the fact that you've got paramedics, and normally you wouldn't look at paramedics and say those are excellent, but considering that the average whip in Pano is 12, so all your doctors are going to be picking things up on 12s, and the fact that the units you're going to be wanting to pick up with a paramedic have actually got sort of above average physique. So you're looking at Orc Foy back, for example, wherever that's gone. Have I got this set up properly? Where's the Orcs? Yes, you've got Orc Foy backs. They're physique 14, same as the Knight of Justice, which is physique 14 as well. And also, I believe the Boig is also physique 14 if you are taking one of those. I mean, you wouldn't always want to take one of those, but hang on, let's rearrange this a little bit so I can find all this stuff. That's better. So yeah, you've got the Boig here as well, which is again physique 13. Okay, fine. So what that means is your paramedics are going to be picking these guys up on 11s or 10s. I know it's not brilliant, but it is an option. It is rerollable, and an 11 isn't much worse than a 12 if you're taking the doctor. And that allows you to have them in links and still be moving up the table. The other thing that paramedics are useful for is picking up this guy. Where's Gunnar? It's got one of those names where you just can't. Where's Gunnar gone? Where's the hammer symbol? That's easier, isn't it? There he is. Oh, he's Troll Hunter. That's why. Yeah, so this guy, when he's in a link, can be a little bit of a point sink and a little bit unreliable, mostly because he has a very strange combination of skills. He's a very expensive model that has above average armor, but he has 1 wound and dogged. Now, dogged is annoying because dogged isn't as good as NWI, because for 2 reasons, mostly. Obviously, at the end of the turn, you are going to die if you've gone dogged. So you better get some work done, and you better have killed more than 38 points. NWI, on the other hand, if he goes into NWI, you can doctor him back out. This guy's combination of skills means that he's going to be trading quite a lot, because if you want to leverage the good things about him, like Berserk, for example, a natural born warrior with that CC 23, if you get the right target, you're going to be able to go, put them in negative mods, and you're going to get pluses, crazy pluses to go get crits. But the problem is, Berserk makes the CC roll a normal roll, which means he's going to get kicked in the groin while he's trying to hit something, which means that he might go unconscious, or if he goes dogged, again, you've got to have killed something else or more than his points value if you really want to trade up, or it better have been worth it, is what I'm saying. But if you've got a paramedic or a doctor there, especially if he's in a link with them, it means he can go in, use those skills, do the damage, have the paramedic or doctor pick him back up again and carry on, and then you really might get his points value out of it. So having those linked paramedics and doctors is useful. That's just one example, but you can see what I'm getting at. Also, you're going to be using a lot of meat-based shooting options. Obviously, by that I mean non-structure, non-robots, non-tags. Yes, there is the Jotun, but yeah, it's tough to write a Jotun list. I'll talk about that later. But anyway, so you're going to have multiple models that have wounds and need to be picked up. So having, I wouldn't say if you're going to run it on its own, run the Infirmary. I think you should really link that if you're ever going to run it. But running the regular Doctor with a couple of Palbots is obviously useful as well in this faction, and probably more so than some of the other Pano factions where you're relying more on tags and so on. You want engineers. In this faction, you probably want Doctors, even though it's not the best. Even though I seem to have mentioned a couple of cons in this, we're going to go on to the proper cons list. Now, this faction does have a lot of shortcomings, in my opinion. Mostly, we'll start with the cost. The cost of all of these units is crazy high. And as I mentioned earlier with... I have to preface this, by the way, with the fact that I don't think this faction is bad. We'll talk about, you know, what I think, where they think they sit at the end of all of this. But I don't think they're bad. They just, you know, they have some problems. So yes, talking about their wildcard options, usually a lot of wildcard options in other factions will make links cheaper. In the case of this faction, though, they tend to make either the wildcard options cost the same as the models that would be in the link. So, you know, Gunner, obviously, very expensive. Uma, and yeah, not the best. Where's Uma? God, you know, I just... yes, wherever Uma is, she's not the best. She's very expensive, and she won't make your links cheaper. The only one that you end up using that makes your links relatively cheaper and reliably cheaper some of the time is Richard Quinn, and he is quite good. He's a little bit boring, but he's a good gunfighter. He does a lot of things. He's a specialist, and you're going to see him a lot in my lists as well, just for shaving a few points off and still getting a decent gun, decent specialist out of it. But for the most part, you are paying a lot of points for almost all of these profiles, and they are all one wound armor 3, yes, but one wound, you know, with unreliable doctors, as I said, you know, you've got them, but you can't rely on them all the time to be picking up your knock-ins and your Kalus and stuff that have gone down. And if they go down, you are losing a lot of points when these units get killed. So yeah, there's a lot of cost put into all of these units. And some of them, you know, they just have a lot of stuff on them that you don't always use, even though they do have a lot of good options. I think Locust, for example, are a good example of that, where they've got ODD and they're really good gunfighters, but there's a lot of stuff on there, like 33 points for this breaker rifle DA CCW at CC20 is okay, but it's not, you know, 33 points is a lot. So bear that in mind. There's a lot of things in here that are very expensive. Lieutenant options, they have very strange lieutenant options and below average, in my opinion, lieutenant options, just because of the way they tend to work on the table. So moving across the list here, you've got Fusiliers, which are cool, obviously a little bit risky. It's always risky to have, you know, your Fusilier hiding at the back or making up a member of a link team, especially if you're playing against a hacking heavy faction. Oh god, combined army with using things like exile and stuff can really ruin your day here. If they've picked out that you're probably running a Fusilier Lieutenant, but at least it doesn't cost an SWC, so that's cool. Obviously things like Orcs, Hospitallers and Knight of Justice, they're very expensive lieutenant options and they're quite risky. The Lieutenant Orc, for example, is 40 points. That is a huge investment for a model that you're going to not want to put at risk most of the time, even though it's got high armor and 2 wounds, just in case you take a bad ARO, you know, and you know how dice goes. You don't want to be stuck trying to pick this guy up, spending command token after command token because you decided to shoot with him. It's just not going to really work. You could go for the attacking option in the HMG, but these guys really excel when they're in a link, so you're not going to get the use out of that lieutenant order if you really want it. You might get it late game, but it's still not great. And the same thing applies to the Knight of Justice, it being linked. Sometimes you have to, and in some of the lists I've written where I just didn't want to have a Fusilier because I'm trying to do limited insertion, and I just didn't want that 10-point model there where I can buy something better, where you have the Lieutenant Spitfire just to have the Lieutenant as a backup shooter for late game, or in situations where you're probably going to be safe, because 5 dice on Ballistic Skill 14 or 17 is absolutely disgusting and will probably win most fights, so less of a risk there. But yeah, again, it's still always risky to take one of these units as a lieutenant. Hospitalers are quite good. They're cheaper than the other options in terms of heavy infantry if we're going for that. It's a 35 points, I believe. Yeah, 35 points for the Hospitaller Lieutenant. Again, tough as old boots, and the kind of a link filler. You need to take the Harry's option. These guys don't have a core option. So if you're going to take the Hospitaller Lieutenant in a link, and not just on his own, and I reckon you should, because that'll make them guess. If you're taking it in a link and moving up the table, they probably don't think it's so risky, but they probably don't think that's your lieutenant if you're being aggressive with it. But if you're taking that, then you're going to have to take this bottom profile here and this one here, and that's a big whack of points. That's, what was that, 71 points? Yeah, that's going to be 71 points in total for those two. So again, not the best. NISs, you should probably never take this NIS option. It costs an SWC. Everything, all the guns in this faction cost a lot of SWC, 1.5 or 2. Outside of the Bulletier, I don't think there is a 1 SWC option, but even then, I'm not sure. I think that might be 1.5. I'll have to have a look. No, it is 1, but yeah. So there's not a lot of cheap guns, so you're going to be spending your SWC elsewhere. And this guy for 30 points, 1 wound armor 3. Again, he's quite squishy. You're not going to get the benefit of his abilities like MSV2 and stuff, because you're not going to want to risk shooting with him just in case things go wrong. So again, not a great idea. And Uma, last but not least. Where is Uma? There she is. Yeah, you definitely don't want to take Uma because she's super, super expensive. And again, for the same problem as the Nish, you're not going to get the usage out of her guns because that's all she's got. She's not a specialist. So if you're not leveraging her guns, then you probably shouldn't be using her or taking her in the links. And of course, if she's your lieutenant, then you're taking the extra risk. So again, not the best lieutenant options, and you often end up getting stuck with Fusilier and stuff like that. Obviously, you can take the Jotun as a... Where's the Jotun gone? Should be there. Oh, that's interesting. Have I done something wrong here? Or am I just being stupid? There it is. Yes, the Jotun. Obviously, it costs 3 SWC, and taking a tag as a lieutenant is so risky. Again, same problem as all the other things. Yeah, they may not expect it, especially if you've got a Fusilier core, which you probably will have to have if you're running one of these. They'll probably assume it's one of those, and they might be a bit surprised. But then the moment you spend that extra order, they know what it is. And Jotun's a bullet magnet anyway, because it's a piece they have to kill. So, oh yeah, there's no chain of command in this faction. So, yeah. A lot of these attacking lieutenant options are very risky. They have a huge vulnerability, in my opinion, to templates and smoke. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, why smoke? They've got NIS snipers with MSV2. But the NIS is your only MSV2 option, and it isn't invulnerable. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure that's your only MSV2 option. After all of my list building, I should know this, but yes, it is your only MSV2 option in the faction. So if you look down at this, you've got 2 options for dealing with enemy smoke, and the one that's going to be the ARO is going to be the multi-sniper. The thing about MSV2 multi-snipers is that everybody faces them, everybody knows how to deal with them, and even if this is linked and at ballistic skill 16, they can still go for you with close range attack options, obviously anything that has 0 vis smoke, eclipse smoke, things like that, drop troops, infiltrators, impersonators, things like that, which is what those units are designed to do, to kill models like this. And if they're decent and they know what they're doing with their units, they'll be able to take out a NIS sniper quite easily, and then your faction is wide open to smoke and close range attacks. They can just walk past all your big heavy guns, your Knight of Justice missile launcher, your fire-back, things like that, and then start hitting you with templates. And that is when you're in real trouble. Because when you get hit with templates in this faction, especially with your units like your Knockin and your Locust and your Kalu and things like that, these are all 1 wound, armor 2 or 3 units, granted, but they all dodge really badly. That's generally a theme across the whole faction, is that they all dodge really badly. With the exception of Lankai and stuff, but that's not faction specific. Obviously, things like the Orcs and stuff, they dodge better, but if they're hitting your whole link team, they're really going for the soft underbelly of your Fusiliers and other units like that. They're not really worried too much about doing damage to the Orc. They can probably deal with it in close combat, which is the kind of troop that Flamers and chain rifles and stuff is on. So yeah, you're going to get hit really badly by those kind of attacks in this faction, and there's not going to be a huge amount you can do about it. I mean, they don't put a lot of mines out. They don't have a lot of camo to cover edges, corners and things, and make people think twice, and to play tricks on your opponent and slow them down. So once they've gotten rid of your MSV2 defensive pieces, they can move in with smoke quite reliably and start doing damage to you, and that can be quite difficult to defend with in this faction. So watch out for that. It's really not going to be fun for you if that happens. Their heavy infantry links are good, but I don't think they do heavy infantry links better specifically than any other faction in Pano, with the exception of a Varg core. If you're taking a core of the Vargs, combined with the Orcs, of course, then you've got your Orcs for your heavy damage potential, and your Vargs are good for covering with Flamers and so on and so forth. But again, these are quite, these are actually, I say expensive. These are good. They're good Toolbox Units. They're reasonably priced. And they do have a lot of options. So the one good heavy infantry link probably involves some of these Vargs, a couple of these Vargs, some Orcs and some wild cards. So they can do that really well. But I don't think it's any stronger than, link teams that you can do in the other factions like military orders and so on. I don't think it's particularly good. I don't think that's what this faction is. They can do it very well. I just don't think it's the obvious way to build this faction. I mean, most Pano sectorials do this, pretty well. I'm not super impressed. They're obviously very good. I think Pano heavy infantry is obviously some of the best linkable heavy infantry in the game. So they're already very good. I'm just saying that I don't think this faction does it better than the other ones. So anyway, no drop troops or special fast attack or smoke. The no smoke thing is obvious because none of the Pano sectorials have smoke. That's kind of the thing they don't get. There's nothing special though in the fast attack realm, and that is a bit of a problem here. The only things you've got are the obvious options. So you've got your Peacemaker on bot and your Bulletiers. And Bulletiers obviously are very good, Peacemaker on bot's very good, but those lines of attack are quite predictable because everyone's seen them on the table, they know how to deal with them. Every faction has something similar to those for the most part, and they're not going to be particularly tricky. Obviously Bulletiers are difficult to deal with anyway, but they're obviously quite squishy and vulnerable to templates and chain rifles, as I mentioned, if you just get the angles on them. People are quite adept at getting around units like this, and you've got no drop troops, so you're not really offering anything that's going to be surprising for your opponent, that's going to be threatening them, threatening their deployment zone and making them move and make mistakes and things like that. This is a pretty straightforward faction, and you're going to be walking at them a lot of the time with units that they can see because there's no camo. Yeah, so that is not your strong point. The go over the other side of the table, hit them, with a quick alpha strike situation is not really going to be happening for you in this faction. So there you go. There's no midfield board control. There is, don't get me wrong, and you can take locusts. I believe the Knockin have mines, so you do have some mines to put out there and things like that. But what I mean by midfield board control is that the kind of things that other factions can do with masked camo markers and making your opponent, making you as a player guess what's what and move cautiously and have to play around all these camo markers, this faction doesn't really do it very well. And obviously if you see camo markers out, they're mines. You know, your opponent's probably not running Uma, which means that all of the camo markers and next to your knock-ins, they're going to know are going to be mines. So it's easy to play around things when you know what they are. The only surprise ARO unit that they have is the Kunai Solutions Ninja, which everybody has, but that has its own shortcomings. As I've mentioned in other videos, the shortcomings are pretty obvious. It's not super terrible, but it's not super great either, and it's very expensive. So in terms of stopping your opponent from moving into the midfield, again, they just can see all of your units. You know, Nokken aren't TO camoed or camoed, and neither are Locusts. And those are your two forward deploying and or infiltrating options. So playing around those guys is going to be quite easy, or easier, against this faction. I put heavy reliance on brute force, and that is generally how you're going to be dealing with most situations with this faction. It's just throwing lots of heavy dice at your opponent, which is generally how Pano do things. Don't get me wrong, and there are lots of really good options for that. It's just that, again, as with the previous point, you're not doing anything that they can't see coming, which means that it can be quite easy, seeing as you don't have fast attack options, for your opponent to just hide and do a hit and run strategy where they hide from your big guns until they're ready to take them on at a range where they're comfortable taking them on, mitigating some of your negative mods if that's what you're running with, or if you're running your heavy infantry, they can just pick the fights that they know they can win or they have a good chance of winning. You know, climbing up to a decent range, throwing more dice against your Orc Feuerbachs or your Knight of Justice missile launchers or things like that. Obviously, they can take bad arrows. You've got high ballistic skill. You know, you're good at shooting, but this can still happen to you, and they can still mitigate the effectiveness of your big guns just by careful positioning. So yeah, be wary of that, because that is your only way of really erasing things, is going to be pointing big guns at them and throwing lots of dice. And there is one more thing I want to mention here as well. Despite how good units like the NIS are at doing that, that's still only, you know, in ARO a couple of dice. And a couple of dice is good in ARO, but it's still very much beatable. And how often have we had a situation where they're, you know, 2 dice in the NIS Harrys, for example, hitting on 13s against their unit. You roll a 1 and a 14. You know, and they, even though with the negative mods, one of their dice comes up a 6 or a 7, and the NIS goes down because it's, you know, armor 3, but still very much capable of dying. So yeah, that can happen to you. So be wary of that. They're vulnerable to hackers, obviously, because there's a huge reliance on heavy infantry, and your assault hackers and things like that aren't going to be camo, so they're going to know exactly what profiles are what, and they can work their way around or just pick off your hackers. So if you're taking the Locust hackers or the knock-in hackers and they're sitting out in the midfield for specialist duties or to provide a shield, they're not a very effective shield, because your opponent's going to know what they are, they're going to know where they are and how to get around them. Or be able to pick them off with their own killer hackers and things like that. So, and of course, your heavy infantry, always vulnerable to hackers, so watch out for that. As another con, it's very hard to write big lists with these guys. If you do write big lists, and I do have a list that's over 10 orders, of course, in my sort of starter expansion list that we'll go through in a minute, it is really difficult to write a big list that can do anything better than the 10 order lists, other than having a couple of like 3 or 4 orders in another group to feed into something like a knock-in, or I don't know, maybe a bulleteer or something like that. But even then, 3 or 4 orders feeding into a bulleteer, you want more than that usually if you're going to be attacking heavily with it. If you decide to put a Harry's in the second group, then you sort of end up splitting your force 8 orders to 6 orders or something like that, right? Whereas what you could have done is just pump more points into armor and guns, and more negative mods, which is what I think this faction does particularly well. I don't think that they're going to be running your 16 or 17 order lists and doing well with that. I don't think there's a point in doing that. And I think if you want to do that, you could probably do it better with vanilla Pano, where you can take units like Swiss Guard and stuff, which are great lone shooters, which will probably be better than taking smaller units in this faction. So I don't think their strength lies in lots of orders. Also, they don't have extra orders coming from skills. So there's no Strategos to add your lieutenant order to the order pool. That would have been amazing, but they don't have it. There's no lieutenant level 2. There's no tactical awareness. So you're not getting extra orders from anywhere else. So even at 10 orders, you're still only going to get 10 orders. So it is a little bit, yeah, they're not big on the big orders, let's put it that way. I've put as a convoluted link teams, which definitely applies to White Banner as well. There's just so many counts as up to, you've got things like wild card, but can, you know, up to 1, and then it counts as, and then can join. This sort of stuff is really annoying and bad for new players, and I hope that they deal with things like this in N4. I spent a week writing lists for these to make this video, and the number of times where I'd written my list and then realized, oh, I've made a mistake, I can't link those 2 units up because I've got 1 less of something, or you know what I mean. I want to do a Harry's, but 2 of them are wild cards, 1 of them needs to have a core skill, stuff like that, which, you know, happens in other factions, but they have more options for filling those things out, so you don't run into those problems as much as you do here. Especially with the cost of these units, you're often putting a unit in just to get a Harry's, you know, just to get the fire team bonus, which you need a lot of the time, especially on things like Nisses and whatever. But when we go through the list in a minute, I'll go into that in more detail. So do I think this faction is bad? Absolutely not. There are definitely technically worse factions. I mean, Infinity is a pretty balanced game, and it really is more about what you do on the table, which is why we love it. So even factions that are technically the worst, you know, like Druze, that people say, you know, have less options than most factions and less flexibility, are probably the worst. But I do believe that Druze recently won Interplanetaria. So it in the hands of a good player, any army is good, of course. But if I absolutely had to do a roundabout ranking for these guys, I'd say they'd sit just in the bottom half. You know, I think they'd sit below, in my opinion, all the other Pano sectorials, with the exception of maybe Acon, maybe. I don't know, actually, but they definitely sit in the bottom half of the rankings. I'll have to really think about that more. I don't really like to rank factions if I can avoid it, so I haven't put a lot of thought into that. But if I had to, bottom half. So right, let's have a look at some lists, because I'm in serious danger of rambling. So the first list that I've written is aimed at newer players who want to use all of the cool stuff that they've got in their beautiful starter box, and just using most of the models and still getting something that could work on the table and has a lot of options. So what we've got in this list is Knight of Justice, Orc, Infirmary, Richard Quinn, Fusilier. So what this is a five-man team with a spare. And why have you got the spare? So that you can leverage the insane fire team bonus. Obviously there'll be better, more flexible lists, but this is based around the starter set and everything you get in the box. So what you're doing with the box is you're using your Orc that you get in there as a foil-back. Your Knight of Justice is your Knight of Justice, obviously, and your Infirmary and Quinn. Quinn is going to be, you're going to use one of your Fusiliers to represent Quinn, which is more than fine. There's a few sculpts that look really cool. I don't know if there's cool ones in this picture, but yeah, there's a lot of cool sculpts that you could use, and just tell your opponent you're using that as Quinn. I'm sure they won't mind. But yeah, you've got a couple of options with this fire team. So one of them obviously is your big ARO piece that you expect to go down. If it doesn't go down, it's great. If you can keep it up with the Infirmary, that's brilliant. If you want to move this link team up, you've got a lot of different range bands covered. You've basically got a free Red Fury here from Richard Quinn and the link team and the Shock Marksman Rifle. He's also another specialist. You've got another specialist here. 5 men to move up the table here. You've got decent coverage. You haven't got super long range is covered by, well, long range is covered by the foil-back. Not super long range, but long range is definitely covered by the foil-back. But also up to short range, because as far as I know, the foil-back is good over 16. Let's have a look. Pretty damn sure it is. after having used it a few hundred times, but yes. So the foil back is good over 16. So up to 16, you've got over 16, you've got that covered. If you get any closer, obviously you can just throw mass dice at them with the Knight of Justice Spitfire will do the job. Obviously your Orcs multiple fire modes gives you the option of cracking heavy armor. And you've just got so many options in here. And if the Orc just gets obliterated, then you can link up. Now it's a bit risky. So what I would recommend doing is the next link team that you would form nicks one of these Fusiliers and takes the Infirmary and the Orc up the field. You could take Quinn with you for a 4-man team, but if you're just doing it for the specialist, you've got one in the Infirmary Doctor. But if you just want the extra gun with you, you can take these 4 as a 4-man. I wouldn't recommend running your Fusilier Lieutenant up the table for obvious reasons. But in a pinch, if you really want to shoot at something with that ballistic skill 17 Knight of Justice, fair enough. It's pretty damn good using that as a 5-man team after that. But again, it's a little risky. But using this 4-man, trust me, ballistic skill 14 on 5 dice is enough to deal with most things, especially with the high armor and the 2 wounds and the Doctor behind it. Your Knight of Justice is going to get a lot of work done. Why have I got the Boig? Well, it comes in the start set, or the Beyond set when it comes out. So you're going to have one. It's not the worst thing in the game. It doubles up as a decent-ish ARO piece, so you've got another something to sit out there and shoot with. You got to remember that I would like to have put a NIS in here, but there is no NIS that comes in the starter set. If you have an original Pano start set, but by all means swap things around and put a NIS in there. But I'm just going off of what comes in the box, which is why this is a little limited, but still fun on the table because Boigs are still a fun unit. Firing, even though it's a burst 2 missile launcher, it just blows things up. That's what missile launchers do. They're pretty good at it. Also, you've got the option of fire team duo here. So if you leave Quinn behind when you reform your link, you can put Quinn with the Boig and they can move up and do things. And then, of course, you've got a couple of range bands covered there. You haven't got the burst bonus, but Quinn is still a pretty good shooter. And at least you've got the range band covered. He also has the visor as well. So if you need to crack a target that's putting you negative mods, you use that. Noken's amazing. This profile file is absolutely incredible because it can do so many different things. Because it's a good ARO piece with that ODD Panzerfaust, covers long range, can be very annoying for your opponent to deal with. Can easily put things at a -12 if you position it properly. And it's also a specialist, and it has that close range. It has a bit of deployment zone defense with that close range defense, and the Panzerfaust as well can hit anywhere down the line. So if you put him at the back of the table with just covering that back line, he's pretty good at that as well. That depends on the mission. If you need him as a specialist, he is a specialist and can do that job for you. The last two are swappable, hot swappable in terms of points. So you could make the Locust another specialist if you wanted with the Killer Hacker profile, but I find that quite expensive. But still, it is an option you can do, and you can sort of rejig the points quite a lot in this list. For example, putting in the Knight of Justice missile launcher is a little cheaper, swapping the Orc out for an HMG, so that becomes your main shooter, things like that. You can still do that. Also, as a side note, before I talk more about the Locust, in order to make this a legal fire team, you have to drag a Fusilier with it, by the way, which is why I was doing that. Because the Infirmary can join a Fusilier link team, and the Knight of Justice can join a Fusilier link team, and the Orc can join a Fusilier link team. So without this Fusilier, this 3-man team, or 4-man or 5-man team, isn't legal. So just bear that in mind. But the Infirmary and the Knight of Justice can be a duo as well if you don't want to take that extra shot bonus. So yeah, going back to the Locust. So this profile is really, really cool. Because it does a lot of stuff. The only problem is it's not a specialist, but Wild Parrot's a very, very good weapon. It's a nasty deterrent against a lot of things. No one likes to be, because it's EM ammo, no one likes to be isolated and things like that, so it can be immobilized. So yeah, it's pretty damn good. It's just a shame that I believe it's disposable 1. Let's have a look. It is disposable 1, isn't it? Disposable 1, yeah. It's just a shame he gets 1. But that's a really good all-rounder unit. Obviously going into suppressive fire can be really horrible, and combined, and can also sort of work very well with the Nokken, just covering angles and ranges that the Nokken can't cover. Well, sort of. But mostly it's just the wild parrot threat and the fact that you can put this guy in suppressor fire, and then he's not a slouch in close combat either. If you want to go in and deal with enemy infiltrators and camo markers once they're revealed, you can go and do that with this guy. So he's pretty cool all round. I like him. He's all right. The Varg Mine Layer and K1 Marksman. This is one of the best guns in the faction. It's just such a cool adage on a unit that shoots very, very well. Doesn't have negative mods like most of the things in the faction, but is really, really cool. And there is one awesome thing you can do here. So if you really want to, and if you've positioned yourself correctly, the Varg can actually join up with Quinn and Knight of Justice to form a really nasty 3-man shooting team as well. So you've got lots of different fire team options that you can do with just the starter set, depending on the threat that you're going to be facing. So after your main aero piece goes down, you can reform one of these just to to deal with whatever it is you're dealing with. You've got to face. So and also the mine layer means that you're putting an extra mine down, which is brilliant. So there's that. That's my random starter set list. Obviously not the best list. There's probably different variations of this, but the challenge was to write one that had all of the starter set models and the Beyond set, with the exception of Gunner, and of course you can hot swap and things like that. But there you go. That's what you might build with the starter set. Right, so this is a starter set expanded. This is one that you would build after you've bought a couple of boxes. Most importantly, you should definitely buy the Bulleteer. I think if you're serious about Pano, you should always buy a Bulleteer box. And the cool thing about the Bulleteer model is that if you do have something to represent, like the whatever it's called, I think the Orcs bot or whatever, they can double up as a peacemaker. No one's going to mind too much. In which case you get lots of extra bang for your buck once you've bought that box, and it's just an incredible shooter, and I think you should definitely get one. You should definitely get the standard Pano box as well, because you might find yourself needing Fugazis, because there's availability 3 in this faction, which is good for filling out orders if you do the multiple order group lists like I've got here. And obviously they're useful for all the other profiles of robots, so you should definitely buy them as well. So assuming that you've got the start set and you bought those two, what else should you get? You should definitely get a NIST Sniper, because it's one of those things that really defines this faction, the ability to link this guy. And with the negative mods is kind of a theme of this faction. And he's, the main sort of poster boy for that, him and the knock-ins. So you should definitely pick up a NIST from somewhere if you can. Maybe get the original Pano starter set. The problem is with that, if you're just planning on playing Winter Force, you probably won't use most of the models in that. But hey. But you can get a lot of stuff individually on eBay and things like that. So if you can get a NIST Sniper, get one. Right, so going down this list, it's quite simple. You've got a Knight of Justice missile launcher in a 5-man core. Ballistic skill 17, multiple shots. That's, enough said, really. It's an extremely good missile launcher. A very hard piece to crack with high armor, 2 wounds, that sort of thing. You've got the Fusilier Paramedic because it picks it up on 11s. Not the best thing in the world, but if you really still want that missile launcher, then fine. But what you can do then is do a 3-man or a 5-man team doing with the same problems and or benefits as I mentioned before with the Orc HMG, and that's going to be your main shooter. With the extra dice and the high ballistic skill, again, we'll deal with most things. You've got a knock-in here because knock-ins are incredible, multiple roles. I think it really, again, is another faction-defining unit, and you really should take this unit. So the thing is, it's available in normal Pano as well, but hey, I don't know if this profile is, but I can't be bothered because I'm feeling lazy to go and have a look. Oh, go on then. Let's have a look. No, I don't want to do that because it will quit me out of this. So I'll have a look at some other point. Yeah, so the knock-in is amazing. Obviously, Lankai. So why have I got Lankai in here? Well, you don't have to. You can get rid of the War Core in Group 2, which is just there as another extra order to feed this little 3-man team that I've got here. But you could also knock it off and upgrade the Lankai. Well, side grade the Lankai to a knock-in if you need another specialist. But I think Lankai is incredible. I play a lot of Miyamoto Musashi in JSA, mostly because it's thematic, but also because it's a horrible piece to have to deal with late game. If you realise that you haven't gone and dealt with this guy with his forward deployment. So he starts a little bit further up. He can easily get into the middle of the table and force you to deal with him. And if he's attacking you at the ranges that he's good at, he's really good. And he can get to anything anywhere. He's regular impetuous, so he gets to use that order when it's safe, but he doesn't have to. He's got super jump, which is, brilliant. Obviously, he can get to anything and anywhere, so he just provides an extra threat that is kind of unique for this faction. They don't really have anything else that's quite like that, other than Gunner, for example, in a Link team. But Link teams are quite cumbersome, and if you just want a attacking piece that's good in CC in close range, then this guy does it quite well. And you're not really short on specialists in this faction at the moment, in this list. You've still got Fusilier, combi rifle, and you are going to be moving up the table with your Orc your Orc HMG, so your Paramedic is going to be moving towards those objectives anyway. Same with Richard Quinn in this second Link team, although this Link team operates a little differently. So in Group 2, you've got the Multi-Sniper. Now, the Multi-Sniper is linked with Quinn and the Machinist. The Machinist is there, obviously, to deal with your Bulletier, and also it has Mimetism, because the faction. Quinn is, free Red Fury if you're still using it, but the main thing for this is to just stop your opponent running at you with smoke, or at least give them something to have to worry about. I don't expect, even though Burst 2 at BS13 is good with a multi-sniper, I don't expect this list to win all of its firefights, even with the negative mods. It will eventually go down. That gives you the option of pumping one of these into Group 1 if you've lost something, or rearranging things around if you want to get utility out of that. But mostly it's just that you've got this NIS, you've got the Machinist, and then this team can walk up towards your Bulletier if it has trouble, shooting all the while, getting your Engineer into a position where it can fix the Bulletier. I know it's not the best thing, but again, you're moving up the table towards those objectives if you need to get them. And sniper rifles are good over 16, so 16 inches isn't a short range, it's a medium range, so you can still move up the table and still be able to shoot things in your good range. So I don't think that's too bad. I'm sure you guys will be able to come up with something better, and I'd love to see it, by the way. That's always the thing with all these videos. It's a discussion, and I'd really like to see your list. Please post your codes down below if you have them as a variation on this. I'd like to see what a bigger SWF list would look like, because I found it quite tricky to do something, but I think this list is quite balanced. So we're going to move on to some more specialized lists. So this one is what you can do with all the big guns. Basically, if you just want lots of big guns, this is how you would do it. I'm not going to touch on this too much, but it's quite straightforward. You've got a couple of specialists because you need those, and knock-ins do multiple roles. As I said before, they can be aero pieces if you want them to be, and obviously you've not got any smoke defense here. But again, smoke isn't in every faction. It isn't everywhere in the game, and these knock-in are still going to make your opponent think twice about throwing smoke in a bad position or going on a face-to-face roll against these guys. And obviously at full range, these are going to be putting people at -12 a lot, and they double as your specialist, so they're just great all round, as I've talked about before. Your Knight of Justice is your first big gun, because you want a Spitfire. It's going to be your main shooter. Obviously the Orc Feuerback is going to be your main ARO piece, standing up on a building and just doing damage. And then you've got Varg here and another Orc. This is actually a 3-man team, because I believe the Vargs have Harry's built in. Yes, they do. I think the Orcs do as well. So this is a nice 3-man team to get that extra ballistic skill bonus on the Orc. So you've got 5 dice on your Orc at BS14. You've got 5 dice on your Spitfire at BS14 as well. Those are pretty heavy guns. And the K1 Marksman will deal with most things. It will destroy tags, things like that. You've got an extra mine here for a bit of extra defense. The annoying thing, the Achilles heel here, is the Fusilier link again. But as I've said, you don't have a lot of great options for lieutenants in this faction. So yeah, you might have to settle with that quite a lot. But if you just like really big guns and you like a little compact list that can take a lot of damage and maybe deal a lot of damage, I say take a lot of damage. I mean, there are multiple wound models here. Oh yes, you've got Gunner as well for the for the fact that he combos quite well with the Knight of Justice, because he's no slouch in close combat. The Knight of Justice could go into CC with him. getting good at 2 dice with that silly crit potential will again waste anything that is unlucky enough to be in close combat with it. And then you've got a Fusilier who has a fairly decent chance of picking up the Physique 14 gunner, just over 50% chance of picking him up. So again, you've got lots of different things you can do here, and you're just relying on big guns to do most of the work, and that can work in Infinity and does frequently. So don't think too negatively about that strategy. And the next one, so this is how you might build a NIS core. There are lots of problems with the NIS core. You have to plug in a couple of units to make it cheaper, otherwise it's just ridiculous, because all these models are one wound. So that is a problem in itself. Your multi-sniper at BS16, because a 5-man link is going to be your main shooter. And then you can take these 3, not Quinn. Maybe Quinn, actually, yes. So you're going to take Quinn up the table for that free Red Fury, and your HMG is going to become your potential both ARO piece later on, because negative mods plus 2 dice on this is still very good, and a decent range band. Obviously it's an HMG, and also it's a main shooter as well if you want it to be. And then you've got a duo here with the Knight of Justice and the Infirmary. The Infirmary is a backup Doctor as well, which could easily pick up one of these. Can easily pick up the multi-sniper if you position him correctly. But if you don't want to do that, you can rely on the Paramedic. It's not the best, obviously. I think the Phys 12, yes, we've been doing it on 9s. But really, you're just putting the multi-sniper out there as a deterrent, and to get as far as it can and to slow your opponent down. You do expect it to die, of course. So what this list is built around is what you do after it dies. I've got a Bulletier in here, but and you've got a knock-in hacking device. So this is a very, very cool dual role model. It does, the assisted fire on the Bulletier, which is what makes it really frightening. You have the machinist in here, so you're going to have to do some clever positioning in order to make sure that the Bulletier doesn't run too far away from him. But that is possible, and you do have the engineer option and the hacking option to buff the Bulletier, which is the 3, which is the Trinity combo with how to deal with how to run these attacking remotes. And you usually see those 3 things. And of course, the knock-in hacking device is still a great gunfighter. Combi rifle with ODD is still pretty nasty. BS12 is, okay, but it's those negative mods that really make it frightening. And of course, a regular hacking device has lots of options. Obviously, you can do hack transport and all that stuff that you get. So you get a few defensive options out of that as well. It does make him vulnerable to hacking, but as I said before, this faction is generally vulnerable to hacking anyway. So you're going to have to take those risks sometimes if you want all the sexy toys. But other than that, that's what I would do with a NIS core. It is really hard to do a full NIS core, and I think they've done that intentionally. I think they're trying to make you lean towards a NIS Harry's and a core of something else in this faction, so that they're not too similar to Varuna. Because obviously in Varuna, you get access to that Kamal Link sniper with the cheap fillers, and it's disgusting. So this faction would do that too if they didn't sort of hamper you with those restrictions. So yeah, bear that in mind. So the next list is more of a gimmick, but it is absolutely hilarious. And the fact that you can do that in this faction, you can do it with vanilla, but this faction does it with links. So you can write an entire list now where every model has a minimum of a -3 negative mod to your opponent, which I can't wait to try. I will try this at some point, because some factions, once you've killed their one MSV2 piece or their MSV1 piece or whatever, they really don't have much to fight this. And even though in order to do this I've taken lots of non-optimal units, it really is a gimmicky fun list that I really would suggest that you try at some point, just to have the giggles at the silly numbers that your opponent's going to be having to roll if they, unless they dodge. And forcing your opponent to dodge all the time is basically what this list is going to do, because they're going to do the maths and realize that they, at long ranges, this NIS core is going to light them up. The foil back is going to light them up. Obviously you've got the Bulletier, and they're just going to be being put at -12, 12s and 9s and 6s all over the place, and it's going to be fun. And it's got lots of specialists in it. It can still do the missions, it can still do what you need to do most of the time in Infinity and get things done. The only problem is if you're running this whole list, I believe the entire thing, if we're not counting the unconscious states on the robot, everything here is 1 wound. Which is why I've run, paramedic. I mean, they're not the best for picking things up, but in a pinch, you're going to have to use them. As I said, they're your go-to options. You could swap it out and put a doctor in there with a power bot or whatever, but that's breaking the theme, isn't it? So this is a gimmicky list that at some point I'll run this week because it looks like loads of fun. Probably is terrible, but look at it. It's hilarious. And the next list, so this is an Orc link, so this is just doing the Vargs. There are lots of things you can do here. If you really like the Flamers, and I really like the Flamers, I haven't taken one here, but the Flamer option for the Varg is very cool because it can sort of, it does, dual roll for defense and that surprise nasty attack when you get moving up the field, as long as you've paired them with good guns that have all their range bands sorted. There they are. Finally, with the Vargs that have all their range bands, if you've got a team there that has all their range bands well thought out and sorted, you will be moving into ranges where you could make use of this Flamer, so you could build a team around that. Or you could build it around the longer ranges, which is what I've done here. You've got the heavy rocket launcher, you've got the Orc Foyback, excuse me. And then you've got variable fire teams. So Knight of Justice can link up with a couple of Vargs or an Orc, and the Orcs and the Vargs have all got Harrys. So if you want to run Orcs and Vargs with those, that's fine. I've got an Infirmary here with the Knight of Justice. Having a look back at this, I probably didn't need to double dock this, but the double dock is there because you're running all this heavy infantry, you're running all this different stuff that needs to be picked up. If you're going to put all those points into few attacking models, then you do need some redundancy there, and that's what having double doctor does that with the power bot. You've got a linked doctor here, and then you've got other things. I may have made the mistake that I made building these lists where I thought that the Infirmary could join up with one of these links, but now that I'm looking at it, it actually can't. Hence the problem with all of the convoluted links teams in this faction. So I would suggest you might swap this one out, actually. Swap out the Infirmary for something else. Maybe for that points cost, I don't know what you can get, but if you can get just jig a few things around, maybe get a NIS in there, I don't know, maybe just to get the MSV2, that could work. But this is just as many guns as you could fit in, basically. So you've got the Orc Foyback, you've got a different, tougher lieutenant this time so that you freeze up your other units to go attack with. You've got Knight of Justice Spitfire doing damage, Shock Marksman Rifle, which is a Red Fury in the Link team, the K1, which is ridiculous, the Heavy Rocket Launcher, which is great. Just lots of really, really big guns. Again, this is totally variable. I just thought I'd put one in that shows what you can do with Vargs as well. And then this is the challenge. Okay, so I'm going to set you guys a challenge with this list. Come at me with the best version of this list that you could that can do lots of different things. So this is a list based around the Jotun. And I think it's really hard to write a decent Jotun list and still take advantage of the cores and the fire teams that you get in this faction and still be able to do a lot of things on the table. So what I've had to settle with here, I believe, is going for ODD fast attack in the Bulleteer and the heavy shotgun so that you've got something to go over the table that isn't the Jotun, because not always, it's not always the best strategy to go, oh, I've got a tag, I'm going to use that for all of my attacking for an entire turn, and I don't care what happens to it, and it's going to end up in the middle of the field, and it's going to do loads of damage, but it's going to die. And unless you've done 100 plus points worth of damage with it, you've probably traded it. I know it's tough to kill this thing, and it is the hardest to kill tag in the game, but it's still vulnerable to hacking. Close combat troops will just crit it to death. Things like that. So running this up and having it as your sole attacking piece is not what I like to do. Although, having looked at this, again, you run into the lieutenant problem, and I really didn't want to take a Fusilier lieutenant because I thought it was just one of those obvious things that happens whenever someone runs a tag list, especially in a sectorial. They often have, a Fusilier or a Zanchi or whatever at the back just lying down and somewhere prone, trying to hide, which is still vulnerable to a lot of things in the game. So I thought I'd take something that was more variable. Now you guys could definitely come up with probably a better one than this, and I kind of wrote this list just because I'll throw it out there, and then I really want you guys to show me what you can do with a Jotun list, because I will play it and I will tell you how it goes. But for now, this is just something that I wrote last minute, and I threw a bunch of things in there. It's really not as good as the other lists, and I reckon I can probably plug in a couple of things in here and change them around that would make them more efficient. Probably Knight of Justice swapped out and things like that to do a more moving up the table sort of Harry's core situation. But at least here you've got the Machinist and you've got the Billeteer and stuff, and you can swap the War Core out for a Palbot and to make sure that the Machinist can be in more than one place at once, which he might be when he's got 2 remotes and a tag to worry about. But again, it's really hard. I found it really difficult. So I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say on the subject of Jotun lists. But that wraps up all of the lists that I've written so far, and I really want to do another video, so I'm going to think about what I could do for content on that to make it interesting for you guys. To do one on the table using Tabletop Simulator, showing some different strategies and positioning, because I think that not just for this army, I think for lots of armies that could benefit a lot of new players. Just looking at how you position things on the table, because you can lose so many games just in your deployment. I think a lot of players who've played for a couple of years, we've all done it where we know we've lost it in deployment, and after a couple of turns we've gone, if I just grouped up or moved things around. Hell, I did it last night. Completely forgot about I was playing Transmission Matrix and completely forgot that all of the antennas are repeaters, and I came up against an Onyx list, and I probably don't need to tell you how that went. After a couple of turns I was getting exiled and shut down and stuff, and that was just because I was asleep when I was doing my deployment. So it's still really hard. Even after a couple of 100 games of Infinity, I still make mistakes, and we can all go to sleep and do that. So I want to do a video next using Winter Force as an example, showing you guys how to deploy on the table, or how you would in an ideal situation when the pressure's not on you, as it was for me last night. So there you go. But that's all from me. This was a review, second part of the review for Svalarheima Winter Force for the Tabletop Republic's YouTube channel. I am Seb K. Thank you guys for watching. I hope it's been educational for you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.